Hi, it's Kelly from Brainflower, and today we are talking about dead people's stuff. What are you going to do about it? Join me. Unfortunately, I have a lot of experience in this area, and I can walk you through my best practices, the tips that will make this as least painful as possible. For example, my sister passed away very unexpectedly. She didn't imagine it was coming. We didn't imagine it was coming. The house, as you can envision, was just a disaster. Just a disaster. And it was chock-a-block full of all the things that she collected. And she collected like everything. Like everything. She probably had enough stuff for, I'm not joking, a dozen Christmas trees. That alone. She left over 12 dozen, like as in over 144 white napkins. I'm not talking about colored napkins. I'm talking just white napkins. Dinner napkins, cocktail napkins that had like little martinis or something like that embroidered in it. Napkins with lace around the edges, napkins with ruffles around the edges, napkins that were like stripes, Battenberg lace napkins. If you know, you know. And that's just an example of everything she left behind. So, what did I have to do? I had to learn how to deal with it. And just to add fuel to the fire, my father had died a little over a year before my sister. My sister could not give up any of my father's stuff. So I had all of my father's stuff and all of my sister's stuff, and to top it off, a few extra things that belonged to my mom that my father didn't want to give up. So I had like 2.5 people's worth, dead people's worth of stuff to deal with. So, with this unfortunate wealth of experience, I have devised 6 steps or 6 tips that I highly recommend to anybody who is going through this process. So, let's get into it. So, let's go through these steps. The first one I highly recommend is to assess the situation and create a game plan. You just can't sail into this without having a sense of how you're going to get from point A to point B. Part of assessing the situation, this may come as a surprise, is knowing who you are. Are you someone who is sentimental about stuff? If you are, you might have a harder time. If you are somebody who just chucks things without even thinking about it, you may be regretting that as you look for paperwork, for example. I'm thinking right now about me trying to find the title to the car that I had given my sister. Technically my car, but I had given her the title. I couldn't find it. I was ready to throw out an entire pile of Entertainment Weekly magazines. Do you remember those? And I found the title falling out as I lifted the magazines to put into the garbage. So I'm all about getting rid of stuff, but be careful. You need this plan. How do you come up with a plan? So the second step of my plan is to bring in some extra muscle. You're going to need help. I don't care if it's a friend. It could be someone you pay, a professional, depending on how big the estate is that you have to deal with. And by the way, I'm not talking about things like houses, okay, or cars. I'm talking about all the crap that's in the house, all the stuff hidden in the attic, the basement, oh my God, the kitchen. Kitchens hide a lot of stuff. You need someone to talk you through it. Maybe it's just a pep talk, or maybe it's someone who can see things with a clearer eye, a third-party perspective, separate apart from your emotions that you're probably having about the person who died, and maybe some shared memories that you have about the items that the person has left behind. Having this outside voice, this outside consciousness about it all is so, so helpful. So I would definitely suggest laying in some extra help right at the beginning. The next step I recommend is for you to decide ahead of time what things you may actually want to hold on to. Again, I'm not talking about those super important things. I'm talking about anything that might have special meaning for you, that may be extra sentimental. Maybe there's something that can be useful for you in your life. You should decide what those things are soon, as early as possible. And even if it's a lot, that's okay, because this is just your first cut at what's going to stay and what's going to go. If you have that already done and put aside, taking a look at everything else with a clear eye gets a little bit easier. Then you can reel back and take a look at the I want to keep it pile and decide if that is indeed what you want to do. Most advice around getting rid of your dead person stuff suggests that you decide what you want to throw away, what you want to sell, what you want to donate. I want to talk about the donation part first. I was very surprised to realize that many charitable outlets that I assumed would take things like furniture or clothing did in fact have rules about that. Either certain types are allowed, or only at certain times of the year. Some places won't come and pick up your furniture if you're in a little bit of an off the beaten track location. I spent a lot of personal time carting stuff, not just to the curb, not just in a little dumpster like situation, but to my local Goodwill, to my local charities. In fact, to be frank, after my sister died, it took me over a year to plow through everything and get it sorted out. As it relates to selling stuff, well, you and your loved one might have had a lot of value associated with fill in the blank. Precious moments figurines, Hummel figurines, a certain type of china or glassware that they had collected, or maybe some kind of funky collectible, clocks, for instance. You might think they're valuable because they are in your heart, but that may not translate into money. So this is a tough one, but that is something you have to wrap your head around and sort of get used to the idea. I made sure that things that my sister had gotten from friends over time, that they wouldn't really be valuable to anybody other than my sister, and maybe to the friends who gave them to her. So I returned those to them as a way of having a little sentimental memory for them. Yeah, the selling part's really, really hard unless you have some amazing jewelry or something that's so clearly collectible. You're going to have to get used to the fact that value is a very, very interesting idea. And it's really reliant on the point of view of the person you want to sell something to. I still have, oh my God, I can't even believe I'm admitting this. I still have, over 12 years later, certain things from my sister that I just could not donate or give away because I felt that they were really valuable. And I haven't been able to find anyone to buy them, but yet I just don't feel right about selling them or giving them away. I'm going to tell you the truth, and it's a little embarrassing for me to admit it. In fact, I can't even believe that I'm admitting this. But I still have a few things, just a few, from my sister that I held on to because I thought they were of high value. And I wasn't able to sell them at the time. And I'm not going to give them away unless it's for like some amazing reason. Everything else, I pretty much have gotten over my guilt in terms of distributing it. And guilt is something I want to focus in on for a second. You are going to feel guilty. You might even feel guilty that this person is dead, depending upon the circumstances. But if you knew they really loved something, or they valued it, or that it had a place of honor in their house, oh my God, in the china cabinet, for instance, you may feel absolutely shitty about what you do with it. I am here to absolve you of any of that guilt. If you can't donate it or sell it, you have to remember not everything needs a new home. That was loved and used by its person. And now that its person has gone on, its usefulness might be over. It's okay. You can let it go. Now I have one more step and then something that's like an uber step. The next step really is to remind yourself, unless you're selling the house, you are not under any kind of timeline. If it takes you 3 months, it takes you 3 months. I mentioned it took me a year. It took me a year. And part of that was me having gotten to the place where I can let stuff go. Took a while. At one point, I had taken photos of all of the garbage bags I had put out for the trash people to pick up. I had over 120 bags in the course of a year. Think about that. That's 10 bags. I don't mean like little kitchen bags. I mean those big, hefty construction bags. And that does not include the stuff that we sold or the stuff that I donated or any of the furniture that went to good homes. That was just crap, quite frankly. Just crap. So it will be a big de-stressor for you if you kind of step back and really understand what your timeline is. I was very eager in the beginning to get rid of a whole bunch of stuff, and so there was a big push because it was right before the new year and the holidays, and I just could not imagine myself living in an environment surrounded by all of those things. But then everything else took time. Now again, if you are under a time crunch because like you're selling the house or you don't live nearby, then I really do suggest you go back to one of my earlier recommendations and get a pro. Those people will walk you through it. They will lean in on the hustle, and they're also understanding and empathetic to who you are and what you're going through. It's kind of like a funeral director, but for stuff. My final step isn't actually even a step. It's sort of a uber suggestion. May this experience of cleaning up after dead people in your life make you think about your own stuff. I never would call myself a minimalist in the strictest sense. But after packing up 3 people, 2.5 people's worth of stuff, I started seeing all of my possessions in a different way. I started thinking about who's going to clean up my stuff. And the answer is probably a stranger, since I'm unpartnered right now and I don't have any children. And my family's dead. Or, worse yet, one of my friends who would also be elderly probably at that time. So I have gotten a lot better at winnowing out my own possessions. I still have stuff, believe me. And I have every little kitchen gadget that I've ever wanted. And it brings me joy. But tons of extra clothes for no reason, gone. Everything that I'm not finding useful right now, gone. At one point, I had many possessions, including a beautiful piece of furniture and an enormous collection of books that I loved, that I had saved over the years, since college even, had built up this book collection. And I had a flood, and all of those things got so moldy beyond repair that I had to toss them. And that is the only time I have ever wept about losing a possession. And in the years after that flood, I've realized what a gift that was. I could easily walk into a store and buy another one of those books. Have I? No, I have not. So my attachment to them was mostly imaginary. like a sentimental attachment, but not a real attachment. The Swedes actually have a term for this. They call it death cleaning, so that you start cleaning up after yourself so somebody doesn't have to do it after you're gone. I love that idea and I recommend it. Let's all do a little death cleaning proactively. Hope you enjoyed this video. Above us here are a couple other ones that you might like as well. And again, as a reminder, it would mean a lot to me if you subscribed or gave me a comment. I love reading them. Farewell for now, and don't forget Swedish death cleaning.